Alrighty, welcome back, boys and girls. It's your main math man, Mr. Shen, coming to you live from Walker Grant Middle School. And in this video, we're still working on that Math 7 SOL review, and we're now in that 7.10. So this is everything slope, everything functions. Make sure you can see those examples that I have. Again, check out those other videos to be sure, have some more in-depth analysis. So again, be able to use those review things to know: table of values, a graph, equation, be able to see the similarities, differences. Big takeaways from it: slope is always going to be the change in your y values over your change in your x values. Always know that the y-intercept is going to be where it hits your y-axis, and be able to always have that equation, whether it's in the form mx or x plus b. So scrolling down to coming in at number 1. What is the slope in the relationship of the table? So I can say this: I know that I can have my change in y is going to be plus 3, my change in x is plus 2. So again, slope is that change in x, change in y over change in x, which is going to be 3 over 2, which is that ratio there. And then for number 2, it says, what is the blank? So let me actually double check. I believe that was a formatting error. So I'm assuming what is the slope? Yeah, it says what is the slope. That's okay. So it says, what is the slope for this one? Well, it has to be what? A way to figure it out. You can find a point on the graph. So it goes to the point 0, 0, and then what is another point where it goes directly in the corner? So again, be very careful when you're picking that out. I could say, hey, I have this. I'm saying that I have 2 points that are on the graph. How would I build that staircase? So I would be going, what's my change in y? I'd be going 1, 2, 3 up. And I'd be going 4 to the right. 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'm going 3 up, so plus 3, and 4 to the right, plus 4. So it'd be 3 over 4. Then for number 3, it says this. It says on Friday, let me double check. Yep. On Friday, Jessica babysat for 3 hours and earned $27. On Saturday, Jessica babysat for 6 hours and earned $54. On Friday, Jessica babysat for 7 hours and earned $63. Write an equation to represent her earnings if x represents hours and y represents earnings. So just being able to see maybe some options here. So let me have maybe even make a table. I could say x and y. Again, I had a couple of values, but it said I had 3 hours is $27, and how about 6 hours? 6 hours is $54. So what is my change in y? Change in y is 27. Change in x is 3. So I'd have 27 over 3. 27 over 3 is going to be the same as 9. So I'd say y equals 9x. For number 4, it says, which other following equation represent the same relationship shown in the graph? So again, be able to see I have highlight my y-axis. Highlight that y-axis. Where does it hit? Trace along that y-axis. It hits at the point 0, 0. And so that means this. I already know, boom, these two right away, because my y-intercepts are not 0. It has to be one of these two. Now I can also say, noticing this as well, what type of graph is it? Well, it's a very slanted positive slope, and so it should be that positive 3, but I can also prove it. I can say, okay, what's my change from this point to the next? Well, my change in y is plus 3, and my change in x is plus 1. So again, change in y over change in x is 3 over 1, so we would have y equals 3x. For number 5, it says, which of the following equations x represents the same shown in the table? So let's have and figure out So we're going from the table to the equation. So let's see. Well, right away, I have my y-intercept. So again, y-intercept. Again, that's an easy way to be able to eliminate some answers. That means this, I need to have a y-intercept of 0, meaning C and D can't be answers. And so let's figure out, well, how do I go, what's my change in y? Change in y is +1, change in x is +2. So that means I have a change y, change x, always slope. So we said 1 over 2, and so we're gonna have that as our equation. Moving on to number 6, it says the total cost of attending the movies y is directly proportional with the number of tickets purchased x. If it costs a family of 4 $38 to attend the movies, what is the slope of this relationship? All right, let me make sure it won't get too scattered out. Okay, so we have the total cost, so we're gonna have y equals, let's have a value, again, we're looking for m and x. So now we have to say, okay, if it's saying this, it's saying, okay, that means that obviously when x, let's actually make a table, when x equals 0, y equals 0, if you don't go to the movies, they're not gonna cost anything. And then when you have 4 people going to the movies, it is $38. So what is going to be that cost? Well, I could just divide 38 by 4, because our change in y is 38, our change in x is 4, so we have 38 over 4. Use that Desmos calculator. At 38 over 4 is $9.50. Boom. Excellent. Moving on to number 7, graph the line that would represent the relationship 1/4 times x. So what you could do is this, I know that my y-intercept is going to be 0, so I have 1 point there. You only need 2 points on the graph to be able to graph a line of a function. So now I have, all right, I plugged in 0, and so what is my output? It is also 0. What's another point that could fall on that line? Well, it means this. So slope of 1/4 means that I'm going 1 up and 4 right. Again, you use those keywords like we had from those translations. If it's negative or positive, you have to use those words correctly. So now I can go from this point, I go 1 up and then 4 to the right. 1, 2, 3, 4. And I have another point on the graph. I can draw my lines, find a straight edge, and plot out that graph very carefully. Again, those 2 points form that line. So now for number 8, similar setup. It says graph a line that would pass to the point -3, -6. So let's graph that first. 1, 2, 3, and then 6 down. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I have this point here, and it says has a slope of 2. So that means 2 up, 1 right. 1, 2, and then 1 to the right. You can also get that other point. So you said, all right, I have the point -3, -6. I have to go 2 up, so I do +2 to the y and +1 to the x. So that's my slope. And so that means that my another point would be -2, -4, which is exactly what we have. And then lastly, for number 9, it says select all the points below that would be in the solution set of the function 2/5 times x. Again, the solution set is just the set of possible answers. And what I can do is this, I can use this Desmos calculator and type it in exactly as it looks. And so I could say, all right, I have the expression, 2 over 5 times x. And if you notice, it says, hey, I need to define what x is. And so what I can do is I can use each of these values and say, okay, when I plug in x equals 2, what comes out is my y value. So when x equals 2, it is not 0 point, or excuse me, it's not 5. What about when x is 5? It is 2. When x equals 0, y is also 0. When x equals 4, we don't have 10. How about when x equals 10? Y equals 4. I can use that Desmos calculator to have those replacement values. So now, still in that 7.10, we're now working with C and D. So now we have for number 1, it has what is the y-intercept of the relationship illustrated in the table. So what I like to say is you can figure out what the change in y is, or the change in x, but you always know that when it gives you that slope, it's most likely going to be a slope of 1, which means this. Again, you could say my change in y is 2, my change in x is 2, and so slope equals 1. And so that means I can also go up the ladder. So that means if I was to fill in the table, I would say, all right, my x and y, I'm looking for when x equals 0. I would have whatever my y value is. When x equals 1 and 2, so we have, this is 3. When x equals 1, y is 2. When x equals 0, y is 1. So that means our y-intercept is going to be positive 1. And then for number 2, it says, what is the y-intercept of the relationship illustrated in the graph? So again, highlight, if you're given a graph, use the tools provided to your benefit. And so it says for number 2, I'm looking for that y-intercept right at that point of -2. Super simple. You know, it's wherever your y-axis hits your line of your graph. All right, so it says which point below would be in the solution set of the function y equals x plus 10. So same as before, we have x plus 10. When x equals 10, does it equal 0? No. When x equals 0, y does equal 10. Very good. Moving on to number 3. Excuse me, number 4. There it is. For number 4, it says Joey is a cab driver. For his first trip, he travels 8 miles and earns $10. For the second trip, he travels 11 miles and earns 13. So what is going to be that equation? So we have 8 plus 2 is 10, 11 plus 2 is 13, 19 plus 2 is 21. Again, you get multiple ways you can do that, but super simple. For number 5, it says which of the following equation represents the same relationship in the graph. So you're going from the graph to the equation. Just like before, identify that y-intercept first, highlight that y-axis. Where does it hit where does the line of our graph hit the y-axis? It hits at the point 0, positive 3, and so our equation is going to be y equals x plus 3. And then for number 6, it says which of the following equations represents the same relationship shown in the table. So let's see what we have. We have our change in y is going to be 3. Our change in x is going to be also 3. So I mean, still slope is 1. And so what we can do, if we can go back in the ladder, that would be great. So I'd say, let's do it like this. So we'll do a horizontal. We have x, y. So we're looking for when x equals 0, x equals 1, we have 2. All right, so when x equals 2, we have y equals 1. Go a step back. When x equals 1, we have y equals 0. When x equals 0, we have negative 1. So we're going to say y equals x minus 1 for that problem. And then for number 7, it says this. It says to attend the state fair, they charge $6 for admission and $1 for each ride. If x represents the number of rides and y represents the total cost for one person to attend, what is the y-intercept of this relationship? So again, this is a similar situation. It's saying 1 is the slope, and so it's initial cost. You know, when you first walk in, even if you didn't ride any rides, it's still going to be $6 to get in. And then for number 8, it says graph that line. Very simply, I have this is my y-intercept of -5. Let's try that again. Our y-intercept of -5. There we go. And then it's just going to be a straight line, so I can just go 1 up and 1 to the right, and I am good. Where am I? There it is. So let's do it like that. And then same kind of situation. We have, it goes to the point -5, +2. So we have -5, +2. And we know the y-intercept is always where x equals 0. So it goes to the point 0, 7. 0, 7. Connect that line. And we are good. Lastly, it has this. Let me make sure it's on there. Yep. All right. Which table has a y-intercept of 5? All right. So usually they give you where x equals 0. However, that's not the case. That is okay. We can figure it out. All right. So this is, it also has to have, so if it has a y-intercept that is not 0, that means that our slope m is always going to be 1. So you have to make sure that you're mindful of that. So our slope, so this slope is 15. This is not a slope of 1. This is not a slope of 1. However, these two are. So let's see. We can go, if it has 2, 7, we're going to say 1, 6, and 0, 5. Again, if you're able to build that ladder, maybe fill in the spaces for yourself. That way you can see how that works.